I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these. You know, the kind of story you read online and think, damn, that's messed up. But here I am. I guess life has a way of hitting you where it hurts the most. My name is Jake Carter. I'm 32 years old, and for the past 14 years, I've been a soldier. The Army was my life, my pride, and, for a long time, the only thing that truly made sense to me. I deployed 3 times, twice to Afghanistan, once to Iraq. Each time, I left behind my wife, Emily, and my younger brother, Nate. I thought they were my home, my anchor in the storm. Turns out, they were the storm. Emily and I met in high school. She was my first love, the girl who made me believe in forever. I married her at 20, right before my first deployment. We had our ups and downs, but I never once doubted her loyalty. And Nate? He was my little brother, my best friend growing up. We were only 3 years apart, but I always looked out for him, protected him. Never imagined I'd need protection from him. The beginning of the end. My last deployment was different. It was supposed to be my last tour, my final time in the sandbox before I could come home and finally settle down. I dreamed about it every day. Emily and I finally starting a family, buying a house and living the life we always talked about. But something felt off. At first, it was little things. Emily's messages became shorter, less affectionate. She stopped answering my calls as often, always with some excuse. Busy with work, feeling sick, just tired. I told myself she was just stressed. I ignored the feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. Then there was Nate. He stopped responding to my messages altogether. Before, he used to send me updates, pictures of home, news about our friends. But this time, radio silence. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was dealing with his own stuff. I had bigger things to worry about, like making it back in one piece. But then, there was the photo. One of my buddies, Kyle, was back home on leave. He and I had grown up together, so he knew Emily and Nate well. One night, he messaged me. Hey man, I don't know how to say this, but I think you should see this. Attached was a picture, a grainy shot from his phone, taken outside a bar in our hometown. Emily, with Nate, holding hands, too close to be innocent. And the look on her face? She looked happy. I felt like someone had just punched me in the gut. Coming home to a nightmare. I didn't confront her right away. What was I supposed to say? Hey, saw a picture of you and my brother looking cozy. Care to explain? I had 3 months left in my deployment, and I couldn't afford to let my mind spiral. I shoved the pain down, focused on my mission, and counted the days until I could get home. The day I landed stateside, I didn't tell Emily I was coming. I wanted to surprise her. Instead, I got the surprise of my life. My mom was the one who gave it away. I stopped by her place first, and she looked uncomfortable, nervous, like she knew something she didn't want to say. Jake, honey, maybe you should call Emily before you go home, she said, wringing her hands. My stomach dropped. Why? She hesitated, then sighed. She's with Nate, sweetheart. They're living together. I swear. The world stopped spinning. I don't even remember driving home. My hands were shaking, my mind racing. I knew what I was about to walk into, but nothing could have prepared me for actually seeing it. I still had my key. I stepped inside our house, my house, and there they were. Emily, sitting on the couch, wearing one of Nate's hoodies. Nate, standing in the kitchen, looking guilty as hell. They froze when they saw me. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Emily whispered, Jake, you're home. I laughed. Actually laughed. It was either that or lose my mind completely. Yeah, I'm home. And what the hell is going on here? Nate had the nerve to step forward like he could explain this away. Jake, listen. I punched him. Hard. He hit the floor, groaning. Emily screamed. I didn't care. I was seeing red. You were my brother, I spat. My brother. He wiped the blood from his mouth, but didn't fight back. I'm sorry, he muttered. I turned to Emily. How long? She looked away. A year. A year. I had been overseas, risking my life, thinking about her every damn day, and she had been sleeping with my brother for a year. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Why? was all I could manage. She finally met my eyes, and the worst part? She didn't even look that sorry. I was lonely, Jake. You were gone, and Nate was here. We didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. It just did. Like it was some accident. Like they had tripped and fallen into bed together. I don't even remember leaving. I just remember getting in my truck and driving until my hands stopped shaking. The aftermath. That was 6 months ago. I filed for divorce the next day. Haven't spoken to Nate since. Emily tried to reach out a few times, but I blocked her. What was there to say? She made her choice. My mom still talks to Nate, but even she's disappointed in him. I don't blame her. He's still her son. But to me, he's dead. I thought losing brothers in combat was the worst pain I'd ever feel. I was wrong. Losing one by betrayal? That's worse. But you know what? I'm still standing. Life moves on, and so do I. I don't know if I believe in love anymore, but I believe in myself. And that's enough. After the dust settled, I found myself at a crossroads. My entire life had been built around two things: my commitment to the Army and my commitment to Emily. Now, both were gone. The Army had been my foundation, but I knew I couldn't keep running back to deployments just to escape my personal life. My contract was almost up, and I had a choice to make: re-enlist or start over. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. I left the military. The transition was brutal. I had no real plan, no idea what life as a civilian even looked like anymore. The structure, the discipline, the sense of purpose, it was all gone. And in its place, silence and anger. A whole lot of anger. I wasn't just mad at Emily and Nate. I was mad at myself. How did I not see it? How did I let them play me like that? I kept replaying every conversation, every time I called home and she told me she missed me. Every time Nate acted like the supportive little brother when in reality, he was in my house, in my bed, with my wife. I spent weeks drinking too much, sleeping too little. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was lost. Until I got a call that changed everything. A new beginning. Kyle, the same buddy who had sent me that photo, called me up one night. He had just started working security for a private firm and wanted to know if I'd be interested. "I know you're going through some shit, man," he said, "but you need to get out of your head. Come work with me. It's good money, and it'll keep you busy." I didn't even think twice. I packed up and left town. The job was a blessing. It wasn't the Army, but it gave me a sense of purpose again. I spent months traveling, working high-risk security details, and for the first time since coming home, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I barely thought about Emily or Nate anymore. Until she called. The call I never expected. It had been almost a year since the betrayal, and I hadn't heard from Emily at all. I figured she had moved on, just like I had. But one night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone lit up with a familiar number. Emily. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Curiosity won. "Jake." Her voice was soft, hesitant. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from." I didn't say anything, just waited. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I let out a dry laugh. "A little late for that, don't you think?" She sighed. "I know. I need you to know that I regret everything." I wanted to ask, why now? Why are you calling me now, after all this time? But I didn't have to. She answered it for me. "I'm not with Nate anymore," she admitted. "It didn't work out." I didn't feel anything. Not satisfaction. Not sympathy. Just nothing. "That's not my problem," I said simply. "I know," she whispered. Jake, I messed up. I threw away the best thing I ever had, and I hate myself for it." I could hear the emotion in her voice, but it didn't move me. Maybe a year ago, I would have cared. Maybe a year ago, I would have wished things had been different. But now, I was free. "You made your choice," I told her. "And I made mine. We're done. Emily, have a good life." And with that, I hung up. Closure. That was the moment I realized I had truly moved on. I wasn't the broken man who came home to betrayal anymore. I had built something new for myself. I had a future. And as for Nate, I heard through the grapevine that he left town, too. Probably too ashamed to face anyone. I don't know where he is, and honestly, I don't care. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just seeing where life takes me. For the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back. Some wounds never fully heal, but they don't have to define you. And me? I'm finally free. After hanging up on Emily, I sat in silence for a while. No anger, no sadness, just an overwhelming sense of peace. It was like I had finally let go of the last piece of the past that had been weighing me down. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Over the next few months, life kept moving. Work was steady, the pay was great, and for the first time in my life, I was living on my own terms. No deployments looming over me, no toxic relationships dragging me down. Just me, figuring out what the hell I wanted out of life. And then, something unexpected happened. I met someone. The unexpected encounter. It happened at a coffee shop of all places. I was in Dallas for a job, sitting in a corner booth, scrolling through emails, when I heard someone laugh. Not just any laugh. One of those deep, genuine, contagious laughs that makes you want to know the story behind it. I looked up. She was standing at the counter, talking to the barista, completely unaware of the way she had just brightened the whole damn room. Long, wavy brown hair, warm brown eyes, and a smile that looked like it came straight out of a rom-com. I hadn't felt anything for anyone in a long time. I had gone on dates, sure, but nothing ever stuck. But something about her? It felt different. And I hadn't even met her yet. I don't know what got into me, but before I could talk myself out of it, I stood up and walked over. "Hey," I said, feeling like an idiot for not having anything better to open with. She turned, and I swear, her eyes lit up just a little. "Hey yourself." I glanced at the cup in her hand. "What's so funny that it made you laugh like that?" She grinned. "Oh, the barista spelled my name completely wrong. I told him it was Lily, and he wrote Lemon." I chuckled. "Lemon, huh? That's a new one, right? I mean, I get Lila, Leah, even Lily with an extra L. But Lemon? That's a first." I should have walked away after that. I should have let her enjoy her coffee and gone back to my emails. But something about her made me want to stay. "So, Lemon, do you always brighten up coffee shops like this? Or is today special?" She laughed again, and just like that, we started talking. Something real. Lily wasn't like anyone I had met before. She had this energy about her. Light, easy, like she had no idea how rare it was to be that effortlessly kind. She asked questions about my job, but not in the way most people did. She wasn't interested in the cool parts, like the action or the danger. She wanted to know if I liked it, if it made me happy. No one had ever asked me that before. I told her the truth, that it gave me purpose, but I was still figuring things out. She smiled. "That's okay. No one really has it all figured out." We ended up sitting at that coffee shop for hours. When I finally checked my watch, I realized I was late for a meeting. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. Before I left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a chance. "Can I see you again?" I asked. She hesitated for just a second, then nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." And just like that, something new began. Letting go for good. Dating Lily wasn't like anything I had experienced before. There were no games, no uncertainty, no walking on eggshells. She was honest, direct, and didn't let me retreat into myself when I tried to. She made me laugh. She challenged me. She made me feel like maybe, just maybe, love wasn't a lost cause after all. One night, months into dating, we were lying on the couch, watching some terrible action movie, when she turned to me and said, "You don't talk about your past much." I tensed up, but she didn't push. She just looked at me with those warm, patient eyes. So, for the first time, I told her. I told her about Emily, about Nate, about the betrayal that almost broke me. When I finished, she didn't say anything right away. She just took my hand and squeezed it. "I'm sorry that happened to you," she said softly. "You didn't deserve that." And that was it. No pity, no dramatic speeches. Just understanding. That night, after she fell asleep, I pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, found Emily's number, the one I had never deleted, and finally, blocked her. It was long overdue. The future looks different now. It's been over a year since I met Lily. I don't know where this road will take us, but for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid to find out. I still have scars. I probably always will, but they don't define me anymore. And as for Nate and Emily, they're just a story now. A painful, messed up chapter in a book I've already closed. I used to think that betrayal would haunt me forever, that I'd never trust anyone again. But then Lily came along and proved me wrong. Turns out, life has a way of surprising you. And this time, it's a good surprise. Life has a funny way of testing you, breaking you, and then, when you least expect it, putting the right people in your path to remind you that not all stories have to end in heartbreak. Lily was that person for me. Over the next year, I started to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Stability. Not the kind I found in the army, where my purpose was tied to a mission. Not the kind I thought I had with Emily, where I was always giving more than I was getting. This was different. This was real. She challenged me in ways I didn't know I needed. She had a way of seeing right through me, calling me out when I was pulling away, when I was overthinking, when I was stuck in my own head. And for the first time in my life, I didn't run. One night, after a long day at work, I walked into our apartment. Yeah, our apartment. It's funny how fast things change when they feel right. And found her sitting on the floor, painting. She wasn't great at it. She'd be the first to admit that, but she loved it. I leaned against the doorway, watching her for a minute. She looked up, grinning. "You're staring. You're beautiful." She rolled her eyes but blushed anyway. "You say that even when I look like this?" She gestured to her oversized hoodie, paint on her cheek, hair tied up in a messy bun. "Especially when you look like that." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're ridiculous." But I could see it in her eyes. She believed me. And that was something I never got tired of. Facing the past. I wish I could say my past never caught up with me, that I just walked away and never looked back. But life doesn't work that way. It happened on a random Sunday. Lily and I were out grabbing groceries when I heard someone say my name. I turned around and felt my stomach drop. It was Nate. I hadn't seen him in over 2 years. He looked different, tired, worn down, like life hadn't been too kind to him. A part of me wanted to walk away, pretend he didn't exist, but something in me told me to stand my ground. He hesitated, then took a step closer. "Jake, man, No, I cut him off, shaking my head. "Whatever you're about to say, don't." Lily glanced between us, putting a hand on my arm. I could feel her grounding me, reminding me that I wasn't the same person I was the last time I saw him. Nate swallowed hard. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I was a piece of shit. I know that. I lost everything, Jake. I lost you. I lost Mom. I lost her. I raised an eyebrow. "You mean Emily?" He nodded, looking embarrassed. "She left me. Guess cheaters don't change, huh?" I let out a breath. A year ago, that would have felt like justice. Now, it just felt like proof that some things were never meant to last. "I don't hate you, Nate," I said, surprising even myself, "but I don't forgive you either. And I sure as hell don't want you in my life." He looked like he wanted to argue, to plead for some kind of brotherly redemption, but he saw it in my face. I was done. I turned to Lily. "You ready to go?" She nodded, slipping her hand into mine. And just like that, I walked away. No anger, no regret, just peace. The future looks good. A few months later, I stood in the middle of our apartment, staring at the small velvet box in my hand. I never thought I'd get here again. Never thought I'd believe in love enough to want to make that kind of promise again. But with Lily, there was no doubt. She walked in, barefoot, wearing my old army t-shirt, her hair still damp from the shower. "Whatcha got there?" she asked, eyeing the box. I smirked. "Guess you'll have to find out." Her eyes widened, her breath hitching. "Jake, is that?" I dropped to one knee before she could finish. "I never thought I'd believe in forever again," I admitted. "But then I met you. And somehow, you made me believe in everything I thought I lost. So, Lily, my lemon, will you marry me?" She didn't say yes. She tackled me. And as I lay there, laughing, holding the woman who had taught me how to love again. I realized something. Life isn't about the people who betray you. It's about the ones who stay. And for the first time in my life, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. The end.